The training facility hummed with activity as I, Observer Krell of the Galactic Combat Assessment Division, adjusted my data tablet for the third time that morning. 40 cycles of evaluating warrior candidates had taught me one absolute truth. Humans were soft. Not just physically soft, mind you. That much was obvious from their squishy exteriors and laughable lack of natural armor. No, they were soft in spirit, in resolve, in every measurable category that mattered for military service, which made the presence of the female human standing in the intake line all the more baffling. "Name?" I droned, not bothering to hide my mandibles clicking in annoyance. "Mara Fletcher," she replied, her voice steady despite being surrounded by species that could crush her skull with minimal effort. I glanced at her file. 23 Earth years old, 5 feet 6 inches tall, 130 pounds. The numbers were pathetic. A Chromath juvenile had more mass than her entire body. Yet here she stood, wearing the standard gray training suit, her dark hair pulled back in what humans called a ponytail, meeting my gaze with those unsettling binocular eyes. "You understand," I said slowly, as if speaking to a hatchling, "that the Galactic Defense Initiative does not lower standards for species with, shall we say, physical limitations?" Her mouth curved upward. Humans called this a smile. I had learned it could mean many things, few of them good. I read the requirements. I'm here to meet them. Behind her, a massive Thoraxian warrior rumbled with laughter. His exoskeleton gleamed under the facility lights, each plate thick enough to deflect plasma fire. "Tiny thing has spirit. I will enjoy watching her quit on day one." The other recruits joined in the amusement. A Velcron female hissed through her breathing slits. 2 Mandorian brothers exchanged what passed for grins among their species. Even my assistant, a young Kalari named Tesh, struggled to maintain professional composure. Only Mara Fletcher remained silent, that small smile never wavering. "Very well," I muttered, marking her file with the standard disclaimer. "Species liability acknowledged. Not our problem when she breaks. Proceed to equipment distribution, then report to Training Arena 7. She nodded once and walked past, her stride confident despite her laughable size. I watched her go, already composing the incident report I would file when she inevitably washed out. Humans, always overestimating themselves, always learning the hard way that their primitive planet had not prepared them for the real galaxy. Training Arena 7 was a multi-purpose facility designed to assess basic combat capabilities across various species. The ceiling arched 50 feet overhead. The floor was constructed from compressed duralloy, a material capable of withstanding impact forces that would vaporize lesser metals. Around the perimeter, observation platforms allowed instructors and senior cadets to witness the initial evaluations. By the time I arrived, the arena had filled with this cycle's recruits. 63 beings from 22 different worlds, all believing they possessed what it took to join the initiative. Statistics suggested that fewer than half would complete basic training. Among the humans, that number dropped to roughly 10%. Mara stood near the center, dwarfed by virtually everyone around her. The Thoraxian from earlier, whose name I learned was Grax, loomed beside her like a mobile fortress. He had to weigh at least 800 pounds, all of it armor and muscle. "Attention!" Commander Vox's voice boomed across the arena. The Velcron officer was a legendary figure, having served in 3 major conflicts and lost count of minor skirmishes. One of her 4 arms ended in a prosthetic, a reminder of close-quarters combat with Hive Raiders. "You are here because your planets believe you worthy of representing them in the initiative. Whether that belief is justified, we shall determine together." She paced along the arena floor, her claws clicking with each step. Today's assessment is simple. We measure 3 qualities: strength, endurance, adaptability. You will be tested in all 3. Those who fail to meet minimum standards will be transported home immediately. No second chances, no appeals. Am I understood? A chorus of affirmations echoed through the arena. Excellent. We begin with strength evaluation. Vox gestured toward a row of testing stations along the western wall. Each station is calibrated for species-specific expectations. You will perform a series of lifts, strikes, and resistance exercises. Your performance will be recorded and analyzed. Form groups of 5. Begin. I observed from Platform 3, my tablet tracking each recruit's progress. As expected, the larger species dominated. Grax lifted weights that would have crushed a ground transport. The Mandorian brothers exhibited the explosive power their kind was famous for. Even the smaller Kalari demonstrated respectable capabilities relative to their size. Then came the humans. There were 4 in total. 2 males, 2 females. The males performed adequately, meeting the minimum requirements with visible effort. The first female, a blonde called Jenna Park, struggled through her lifts, but managed to qualify. Mara was last. She approached the testing station designated for her weight class. The examining instructor, a grizzled thoraxian named Dex, looked at her with something approaching pity. You understand these weights are not adjustable? The minimums are the minimums. I understand, Mara said. Dex shrugged his massive shoulders. Your funeral. Begin with the deadlift. The bar was loaded with 220 pounds. Not impressive by thoraxian standards, barely noticeable by chromath measures, but significant for a human female of Mara's size. I had seen larger human males fail this very test. She stepped to the bar, set her feet, gripped the metal with both hands, and lifted. Not struggled. Not barely managed. Lifted. The bar rose smoothly, Mara's back straight, her form textbook perfect. She held it at full extension for the required 3 seconds, then lowered it with control. No shaking, no grimacing. She might as well have been picking up a bag of groceries. Dex's eyes widened slightly. Huh, beginner's luck. Let's see the overhead press. 130 pounds. Mara positioned herself beneath the bar, lifted it to her shoulders, then pressed it overhead. Again, the movement was clean, controlled, efficient. She completed the required 10 repetitions without apparent difficulty. Interesting, Dex muttered, making notes on his tablet. Strike test next. The strike test involved hitting a calibrated pad that measured impact force. It was a simple assessment. Hit the pad. The machine calculates the power. Pass or fail. Mara removed her training jacket, revealing arms that were defined but not bulky. Human musculature was strange. They lacked the obvious mass of thoraxians, the dense fiber bundles of Velcron, the hydraulic efficiency of chromath physiology. Yet something in the way Mara moved suggested more than her slight frame implied. She faced the pad, rolled her shoulders once, then struck. The crack echoed across the arena. Conversations stopped. Recruits turned to look. Even Commander Vox paused her observation of another group. The impact meter displayed a number that made Dex check his equipment for malfunction. That cannot be correct, he said, more to himself than anyone else. Problem? Mara asked, her tone innocent. You, Dex said slowly, just registered an impact force of 940 pounds per square inch. That is, and I want to be very clear here, impossible for a human female of your mass. Grax lumbered over, curious about the commotion. He looked at the meter, then at Mara, then back at the meter. Tiny thing hits like a cargo hauler. This I must see again. Equipment malfunction, I announced from my platform, already descending to investigate. Reset the sensor and retest. Dex complied, running a full diagnostic on the strike pad. Every system returned green, functioning within normal parameters. No errors detected. Test again, I ordered. Mara shrugged and hit the pad a second time. 960 pounds per square inch. Third test, I demanded. 975. The arena had gone silent. 63 recruits and a dozen instructors stared at the small human female who had just produced strike forces that most Thoraxians would struggle to match. How? Grax rumbled, genuine confusion in his voice. You have no mass, no armor. Your bones should shatter. Mara's smile returned, wider this time. Earth gravity is 1.0 standard. We evolved under it. Everything we do while being pulled down by that force. Our bones adapted. Our muscles adapted. Our entire physiology is built to function under load. That, I said stiffly, is not a sufficient explanation. No? She tilted her head, and I noticed several other humans in the arena were grinning now, as if sharing some private joke. Want me to explain twitch fiber composition? Skeletal leverage ratios? The way human connective tissue stores and releases kinetic energy? I replied coldly, for you to complete the remaining tests. She did. The endurance trial involved running a 6-mile course while carrying 50 pounds of equipment. Mara finished in the top 15% of all recruits, ahead of beings with twice her leg length. The adaptability test required solving a series of tactical puzzles under time pressure. She scored perfectly. By the end of day 1, Mara Fletcher had not only met every minimum requirement, but had exceeded them in most categories. Her overall ranking placed her 7th out of 63 recruits. The other humans did not fare as well. One of the males washed out during endurance testing. Jenna Park barely scraped by. But Mara continued to perform at levels that defied every biological model we had for her species. Explain this, Commander Vox said that evening, reviewing the day's data in her office. I stood before her desk, my tablet clutched in 3 of my 6 hands. Your reports on humans have consistently indicated they are among the weakest species in the initiative. Yet this one outperforms Thoraxians in strength, Kalari in endurance, and Velkron in tactical assessment. An anomaly, I insisted. Genetic aberration. Performance enhancement. There must be an explanation. Oh, there is an explanation, Vox said, her voice carrying that edge of amusement that made junior officers nervous. The explanation is that humans are not what we think they are, or rather, they are much better at hiding what they actually are. Commander? She pulled up a file on her holodisplay. I have been in the initiative for 32 cycles, Krell. In that time, I have seen exactly 7 humans complete advanced training. Do you know what they all had in common? I waited. They all seemed weak at first, unremarkable, easy to underestimate. Then, when it mattered, when the real tests began, they revealed capabilities that shocked everyone around them. She fixed me with 3 of her 4 eyes. Humans are not physically inferior. They simply do not waste energy on displays of strength. They conserve, they calculate, they strike when it counts. You believe Mara Fletcher will continue to exceed expectations? I believe, Vox said carefully, that we have not yet seen what she is truly capable of. And I believe that when we do, it will be memorable. She was right. The incident occurred on day 12. Advanced combat training had begun. Recruits were paired against each other in controlled sparring matches, wearing protective gear and using dulled practice weapons. The matches were meant to assess fighting instinct, tactical thinking, and the ability to control aggression. Mara's opponent was a male chromath named Dulgor. He stood 7 feet tall, weighed approximately 400 pounds, and possessed the kind of arrogance that only came from a lifetime of physical dominance. His species was renowned for close-quarters combat. Their thick hides could turn blades. Their strength could bend durasteel. "Try not to hurt the little creature too badly," one of Dulgor's friends called out as the two fighters took their positions. Dulgor grinned, revealing rows of sharp teeth. "I will be gentle, like handling a hatchling." The match began. Dulgor advanced with the confidence of someone who had never lost a physical confrontation. He swung his practice blade in a wide arc, designed to overwhelm Mara through sheer power. She ducked under it, stepped inside his guard, and drove her practice dagger into his midsection with enough force to crack 2 of his abdominal plates. Dulgor staggered back, shock replacing arrogance. That strike should have been impossible. The practice weapons were designed to simulate real combat, but they required significant force to register a telling blow against chromath armor. Mara had done it like swatting a fly. "Lucky hit," Dulgor snarled, his pride wounded more than his body. He attacked again, this time with genuine aggression. His blade came down in an overhead smash that would have ended the fight if it connected. Mara sidestepped, caught his wrist, and used his own momentum to throw him. A 400-pound chromath warrior flew through the air and landed flat on his back with a crash that rattled the arena floor. The other recruits stopped their own matches to watch. Dulgor climbed to his feet, rage replacing shock. "Enough playing! I will break you!" He charged, all technique abandoned in favor of pure aggression. Mara waited until the last possible second, then dropped low and swept his legs. Dulgor went down again, and this time Mara followed him. She landed with her knee on his chest, her practice blade at his throat, and her free hand clamped around his wrist in a grip that made his fingers spasm involuntarily. "Yield," she said quietly. "Never." Mara increased the pressure on his wrist. Something popped. Dulgor howled and slapped the mat 3 times, the universal signal for submission. Mara released him immediately and stood, offering her hand to help him up. Dulgor ignored it, rolling away and clutching his injured wrist. "Medical," I called out, already moving toward them. The medic, a Kalari specialist named Rith, examined Dulgor quickly. "Dislocated joint, strained ligaments, nothing permanent, but he will require treatment." "She cheated!" Dulgor spat, his pride more damaged than his wrist. "Used some earth trick." "I used jujitsu," Mara corrected calmly. "A martial art from my planet. Leverage over strength. Technique over size. It is all perfectly legal according to initiative combat regulations." She was correct, of course. The regulations allowed for species-specific fighting styles. But watching a human barely over 100 pounds dominate a chromath warrior violated every instinctive expectation we had about physical confrontation. "Impressive," Commander Vox said, having appeared at the edge of the training area. "Very impressive, Recruit Fletcher. You have clearly trained extensively." "Since I was 6 years old, Commander. My father runs a dojo in Colorado. He believed everyone should know how to defend themselves." "Wise parent," Vox turned to address the entire group. "Let this be a lesson. In combat, assumptions kill. The warrior who underestimates their opponent has already lost." Training continued, but something had shifted. The other recruits no longer looked at Mara with amusement or pity. Now there was caution, respect. Some, like Grax, appeared almost delighted. "Tiny human is mighty," he declared during the midday meal. "I wish to learn this jujitsu. Will you teach me?" "Sure," Mara said, popping a protein cube into her mouth. "But you might be too big for some of the techniques." "Ha! Then I will learn the ones that work. We will be friends, yes?" "Yeah," Mara said, and genuine warmth entered her voice. "We can be friends." I watched this interaction from the observation deck, my tablet forgotten in my hands. Everything I thought I knew about humans was proving inadequate. They were not weak. They were not fragile. They were strategic, hiding their true capabilities until the moment revealing them provided maximum advantage. How many other assumptions about Earth species were equally wrong? The question troubled me more than I cared to admit. 3 days later, during advanced strength conditioning, the incident occurred that would become legendary within the initiative. The exercise was simple in concept, brutal in execution. Recruits would perform a series of maximum effort lifts, while instructors increased the weight until failure. The goal was not to complete the lift, but to reach one's absolute limit. Understanding your maximum capacity was crucial for battlefield loadout planning. Mara's turn came after most others had completed theirs. The weights were set to 280 pounds for the squat lift, a respectable challenge, but within her demonstrated capabilities. She completed it easily. Dex added 20 pounds. Again, 300 pounds. Mara descended into a perfect squat, paused at the bottom, and rose without visible strain. "More," she said. Murmurs rippled through the watching crowd. Grax leaned forward on his observation bench. Even Commander Vox had arrived to witness this. 340 pounds. Mara lifted it. "More." 380. Up it went. "How?" I heard myself whisper. "More." 420 pounds. That was approaching the maximum for female thoraxians. For a human of Mara's size, it should have been physically impossible. The bar would crush her spine. Her legs would buckle. Basic physics and biology dictated failure. Mara descended into the squat, her face showing concentration but not agony. At the bottom of the movement, she paused, took one slow breath, and drove upward. The bar rose, and rose, and rose. She locked it out at full extension, held it for 3 seconds, then lowered it back to the rack with perfect control. The arena exploded with noise. Recruits cheered, shouted, stomped their feet. Grax bellowed something in Thoraxian that my translator rendered as roughly, "Mighty tiny warrior breaks the rules." Dex stared at his tablet, then at Mara, then at the weights. I have no words." "Is there more weight?" Mara asked, breathing slightly harder now, but far from exhausted. "There is," Dex said slowly, "but I am not sure we should add it." 460 pounds. The bar actually bent slightly under the load. Mara stepped under it, set her position, and lifted. Not smoothly this time. The strain showed. Her legs trembled. Her breath came in sharp bursts, but the weight rose centimeter by centimeter until she stood fully upright. A small human female supporting a load that should have required a mechanized assist frame. She held it. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Then she began to lower it, maintaining control even as every muscle in her body screamed for release. The bar was 2 inches from the rack when it happened. The floor cracked. Not a small crack. A fracture that spread outward from where Mara stood, spiderwebbing across the compressed duralloy like lightning frozen in metal. The sound was tremendous, a sharp report that echoed off the arena walls. Mara dropped the bar, which hit the rack with a clang, and stepped quickly backward as the fracture continued to spread beneath the lifting station. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Dex started laughing. Deep, booming laughter that seemed wrong coming from a species not known for humor. "She broke the floor! The tiny human broke the training floor!" Commander Vox descended from her platform, her expression unreadable. She examined the damage, running her prosthetic hand along the fractured duralloy. "This floor has withstood training sessions from Chromath, Thoraxians, even a Hammer-class juggernaut." She looked at Mara. "What are you?" "Human, ma'am," Mara replied, still catching her breath. "Just human." "No." Vox shook her head slowly. "You are something more. Or perhaps you are simply what humans actually are when we stop underestimating them." She turned to address the entire arena. "Maintenance will repair this damage. Training continues tomorrow. Recruit Fletcher, you are excused for the remainder of the day. Rest. You have earned it." "Thank you, Commander." As Mara walked toward the exit, Grax fell into step beside her, along with several other recruits who had initially mocked her presence. They spoke in low voices, asking questions, seeking to understand. I remained on the observation platform, staring at the cracked floor, at the tablet in my hands displaying data that rewrote everything I thought I knew. Humans were not weak. They were terrifying. And we had just begun to understand why. The crack in the training floor became a monument of sorts. Maintenance crews sealed it, reinforced the surrounding area, but Commander Vox ordered them to leave the fracture visible. "A reminder," she said. "A reminder that assumptions could be shattered as easily as duralloy." I found myself studying humans with renewed intensity over the following weeks. Not just Mara, though she remained the most prominent example, but all of them. The way they moved, the way they conserved energy during routine tasks, but exploded into action when required. The way they smiled before doing something that should terrify them. Grax had taken to calling Mara floor breaker, which she tolerated with good humor. The massive Thoraxian had become her unlikely training partner, and their friendship provided endless entertainment for the other recruits. Watching them spar was like observing physics having an argument with itself. "Again!" Grax would roar after Mara threw him for the dozenth time. "I must understand how you make gravity work for you." "It works for everyone," Mara would reply, helping him up. "You just have to stop fighting it." But the real test was coming. Week 5 brought environmental adaptation trials. Each recruit would face conditions simulating their least compatible biome. For ice world species, scorching deserts. For aquatic beings, arid wastelands. The initiative needed soldiers who could function anywhere, under any circumstances. For humans, whose homeworld occupied a comfortable middle range, the trial involved extremes in both directions. First, the heat chamber. I watched from the control room as 16 recruits entered a compartment designed to replicate the surface of Pyros 9. Temperature, 140 degrees standard. Humidity, 98%. Duration, 2 hours. 3 Chromath, 4 Thoraxians, 2 Velcron, 5 Kalari, 2 humans, Mara and a male named Lucas Grant. "Beginning trial," Instructor Rem announced, activating the environmental controls. The temperature climbed rapidly. Within minutes, the Chromath were visibly uncomfortable, their thick hides designed for cooler climates working against them. The Thoraxians fared better initially, their exoskeletons providing some insulation. The humans simply stood there, breathing steadily. 20 minutes in, the first Chromath requested extraction. 40 minutes, the second. By the hour mark, only the Thoraxians, Velcron, and humans remained. "Their core temperatures are rising," Medical Officer Rith observed, monitoring the biometric feeds. But within acceptable parameters, how are they not collapsing? Humans sweat, I said, reading from my ever-growing file on Earth species. They cool through evaporation. It is remarkably efficient in high heat. Disgusting, Rem muttered, but effective. 90 minutes. The tricky. Thoraxians were struggling now, their breathing labored. One of the Velcrons signaled for extraction, her breathing slits unable to process the superheated air efficiently. Mara and Lucas stood together, their training suits soaked through, but their vitals remained stable. They were actually conversing, discussing something about a place called Death Valley, and how this reminded them of summer there. They are treating this like a minor inconvenience, I said, disbelief coloring my voice. Earth is a harsh planet, Commander Vox observed. She had joined us in the control room to witness this trial. Variable climate, extreme weather, dangerous fauna. Humans did not evolve in safety. They evolved fighting for every advantage. 2 hours. Trial complete. The Thoraxians exited immediately, exhausted but functional. Mara and Lucas walked out discussing dinner options. "How was it?" Grax asked as they emerged, his mandibles clicking with concern. "Hot," Lucas said with a shrug. "But I trained in Arizona. This was actually pretty mild." "Mild," Grax repeated slowly. "You call this mild?" "Wait until the cold trial," Mara said, her smile returning. "That one might actually be interesting." The cold trial occurred 2 days later. Temperature, minus 120 degrees standard. Wind speed, 40 miles per hour. Duration, 90 minutes. This time, the human advantage was less apparent. Their species had not evolved for extreme cold, but they had developed something else, something that proved equally valuable. Stubbornness. The chamber filled with icy wind that would have frozen most unprotected beings solid within minutes. The recruits wore survival suits, but the suits only provided limited protection. Mental fortitude had to handle the rest. 15 minutes in, I could see Mara shivering violently. Her teeth chattered, her fingers had gone white, but she remained upright, moving constantly, generating heat through motion. "She is in distress," Rith noted. "We should extract her." "No," Commander Vox said firmly. "Watch." Mara had begun teaching Lucas and the others near her a technique. They formed a tight group, cycling positions so that those in the center could warm slightly, while those on the outside blocked wind. It was crude, unplanned, spontaneous cooperation born from necessity. "Tactical adaptation," Vox said approvingly. "They are solving the problem together." The group strategy worked. While individual recruits from Cold World species handled the temperature better initially, they lacked the cooperative instinct to share that advantage. The humans, along with a few others who recognized the value of the formation, outlasted beings who should have been naturally superior. 90 minutes. Trial complete. Mara emerged with mild frostbite on 3 fingers. Lucas had a frozen patch on his left ear. But they had completed the trial, and in doing so, had demonstrated something more valuable than physical resilience. They adapted. Week 7 brought live combat exercises. Not sparring, not simulation. Real weapons, real ammunition, real consequences. Stun settings, obviously, and medical teams on standby. But the danger was genuine. The scenario was straightforward. 2 teams of recruits would compete to secure a fortified position. First team to capture and hold the objective for 15 minutes won. Stun hits meant removal from the exercise. No respawns. No second chances. Red team consisted of 8 Chromath, 4 Thoraxians, and 3 Mandorian brothers. 15 recruits total, all from species known for combat prowess. Blue team had 12 members. 5 Kalari, 2 Velcron, 1 Thoraxian, and 4 humans, including Mara. The betting among instructors heavily favored Red Team. "This will be educational," I said to Tesh, who had become my unofficial assistant. "The humans will learn what real combat requires." "Observer Krell," Tesh said hesitantly, "have you not been paying attention? Every time we assume human limitation, they disprove it. Combat is different. Strategy and strength only matter if you can apply them under fire." The exercise began. Red Team advanced with overwhelming force, their natural advantages in size and armor allowing them to move directly toward the objective. It was a sound strategy. Brute force often worked when you had sufficient advantage. Blue Team scattered. "They are fleeing," I observed. "Predictable." But they were not fleeing. They were positioning. Mara had taken command of the human contingent without formal authorization. She directed Lucas and the other two, a female named Riley Kent and a male called Marcus Joe, to elevated positions surrounding the approach to the objective. The Kalari, recognizing good leadership when they saw it, followed her directions. The Velcron did the same. Even their single Thoraxian, a level-headed female named Crix, deferred to Mara's tactical assessment. Red Team entered the kill zone. The humans opened fire with devastating precision. Not spray and pray, not suppressive fire. Aimed shots, each one finding a target. 3 Chromath went down in the first 5 seconds, 2 more in the next 3. "How are they so accurate?" Rem demanded, watching his favored team collapse. "Persistence hunting," Commander Vox said quietly. "Humans evolved chasing prey across vast distances. They developed the ability to track targets, predict movement, compensate for variables. Their aim is not lucky. It is genetic." Red Team tried to adapt, using their remaining numbers to rush the objective, but Blue Team had set up overlapping fields of fire. Every approach was covered. Every angle had a shooter waiting. The Thoraxians attempted to use their armor to close distance. Riley Kent put 3 stun rounds through the joints in one Thoraxian's exoskeleton before he could take 5 steps. The Chromath tried brute force. Marcus Joe dropped them with shots to their sensory organs, the only vulnerable points on their hides. 12 minutes after the exercise began, Red Team had been eliminated. Blue Team secured the objective without losing a single member. The silence in the control room was absolute. "They just," Rem started, then stopped. 15 opponents, not 1 loss. "Tactics," Fox said, satisfaction evident in her voice. "Humans fight smart. They analyze, they plan, they execute with ruthless efficiency. This is why they survive on a planet that should have killed them 1,000 times over." I said nothing. What could I say? Every observation, every assessment, every conclusion I had drawn about humans had been systematically destroyed over 7 weeks of training. The final evaluation occurred on week 10, the culmination of basic training, the trial that determined who would proceed to advanced specialization and who would return home with thanks, but no commission. The Crucible, we called it. 48 hours of continuous operation. No sleep, minimal food, constant challenges, both physical and mental. Navigation, combat, puzzle solving, endurance running. Everything a soldier might face in the field, compressed into 2 brutal days. 63 recruits had started training. 41 remained. The others had washed out, returned to their homeworlds, dreams of initiative service left behind. Of the original 4 humans, 3 remained. Mara, Lucas, and Riley. Jenna Park had withdrawn after week 6, citing medical concerns that were, in reality, mental exhaustion. "Nervous?" Lucas asked Mara, as they prepared for deployment into the Crucible zone. "Always," she admitted. "But that is good. Fear keeps you sharp." Words of wisdom from the floor breaker, Riley said with a grin. Grax would approve. Grax himself stood nearby, checking his equipment. He had become inseparable from the human contingent. His initial amusement transformed into genuine respect and friendship. We survived together, he rumbled. Like always, tiny humans and big Thoraxian, strongest team. Facts, Marcus said, adjusting his pack straps. The crucible began at dawn. Teams of 4, randomly assigned, dropped into a simulated hostile zone with minimal equipment and a list of objectives. Complete the objectives. Reach the extraction point. Do it before time expires. Mara's team included Grax, a Kalari scout named Pip, and a Chromath warrior who had stopped underestimating humans after watching the live combat exercise. His name was Thorn, and he had specifically requested assignment to any team Mara led. Because tiny human sees what others miss, he had explained when asked. Wants to learn. Their first objective appeared 15 minutes into the exercise, a navigation challenge that required reaching a checkpoint 3 miles away through dense forest using only a compass and topographical map. I will scout ahead, Pip volunteered, her small frame perfect for moving quickly through underbrush. Wait, Mara said, studying the map. Look at the terrain. That direct route crosses 3 ravines. We would spend more time climbing than traveling. She traced an alternate path. This follows the ridgeline. Longer distance, but easier terrain. We can move faster. How do you know? Thorn asked. Reading maps is a survival skill on Earth. My father taught me when I was young. Mountains are dangerous if you do not understand them. They followed her route, reached the checkpoint in 42 minutes, 20 minutes ahead of the projected time. The challenges continued. A combat scenario against automated drones. Grax wanted to charge directly at them. Mara suggested using Pip's speed to draw them into an ambush. They destroyed all targets without taking a single hit. A puzzle that required assembling a communications device from scattered components. Thorn's strength and Mara's technical knowledge combined to solve it in record time. Hour 12. No sleep. Minimal food. They kept moving. How are you still functional? Pip asked Mara during a brief rest stop. Your species needs sleep more than most. We also resist sleep deprivation better than most, Mara replied, her voice steady despite obvious exhaustion. Adaptation. Our ancestors had to stay alert for days while hunting or avoiding predators. The ones who could not stay awake died. The ones who could survived to pass on their genes. Hour 24. Halfway through. Other teams were struggling. The communications network carried reports of withdrawals, medical evacuations, failures. Mara's team had completed every objective so far. Hour 36. The final challenge appeared. A fortified position held by instructor-controlled automated defenses. The team had to infiltrate, retrieve a data core, and extract without being detected. Stealth mission. Pure and simple. I am too large for sneaking, Grax said mournfully. We'll wait here, provide distraction if needed. No, Mara said, examining the facility layout on her tactical display. We need your strength. Look at the eastern wall. Thicker than the others. Probably reinforced. But there is a ventilation shaft that passes near it. You want me to break through ventilation? Grax asked. I want you to break through the wall from inside. Once we are in position, you create a new exit route. We go in quiet, leave loud and fast. It was audacious. It was risky. It was brilliant. Pip infiltrated first, her Kalari physiology allowing her to squeeze through gaps that would stop larger beings. She disabled internal sensors. Thorn followed, using his Chromath combat training to neutralize automated guards. Mara provided overwatch, her accuracy ensuring no alarm was raised. They reached the data core chamber, retrieved the objective. Then Grax hit the wall. The reinforced duralloy, designed to withstand heavy weapons fire, collapsed under 800 pounds of Thoraxian warrior moving at full ramming speed. Alarms shrieked. Defenses activated. But the team was already through the new hole, sprinting for the extraction point. Automated drones pursued. Grax swatted them from the sky like annoying insects. Thorn's armor turned incoming fire. Pip scouted the fastest route. Mara coordinated everything, her commands clear and precise, even while running at full sprint. They reached extraction with 5 minutes to spare. Hour 48. Crucible complete. Of 41 recruits who started, 29 finished. Of those 29, only 6 teams had completed every objective. Mara's team was one of them. The graduation ceremony occurred 3 days later, after recruits had rested, recovered, and processed what they had accomplished. Commander Vox stood before the survivors, her forearms clasped in the traditional Velcron gesture of respect. "You arrived as individuals from dozens of worlds," she said. "You leave as soldiers of the Galactic Defense Initiative. You have proven yourselves worthy. You have earned the right to defend civilized space against those who would threaten it." She began calling names, presenting each graduate with their official commission. When she reached Mara, Vox paused. "Recruit Mara Fletcher. You came to us from Earth, a world we understood poorly. Through your actions, you have taught us that understanding a species requires looking beyond surface assumptions. You broke our floor. You broke our expectations. You broke every limitation we tried to place on you. Well done, Soldier Fletcher." Mara accepted her commission, saluted crisply, and returned to formation. But I saw the smile, the satisfaction of proving wrong every being who had doubted her. Grax bellowed approval. Other graduates joined in, creating a cacophony of sounds that represented dozens of worlds united in respect. That evening, I found Commander Vox reviewing the final evaluations in her office. "I was wrong about humans," I said without preamble. "About everything." "Yes," Vox agreed simply. "You were, but you learned. That matters. What happens now, when word spreads that humans are this capable?" Vox considered the question carefully. "Some species will feel threatened. Others will seek alliance. Earth will receive more attention, both positive and negative. But humans have proven they can handle attention. They have been doing it on their own world for millennia." She pulled up a file, and I recognized Mara's profile. "I am recommending Fletcher for special operations training. She possesses the tactical mind, physical capabilities, and leadership qualities we need for elite units. The same for Grant, Kent, and Joe." "They will excel," I said with certainty. "Undoubtedly. And they will be joined by more humans in future training cycles. Earth has been underrepresented in the initiative because we assumed they had little to offer. That assumption ends now." I departed her office with my tablet full of new data, new observations, new understanding. 40 cycles of evaluating warrior candidates, and only now was I beginning to comprehend what made a true warrior. Not size, not strength, not natural advantages, adaptability, determination, the refusal to be limited by expectation. Humans possessed all 3 in abundance. In the courtyard, I found Mara sitting with Grax, Pip, and Thorn. They were sharing stories, laughing, planning their futures now that graduation had made those futures possible. "Observer Krell!" Grax called out, waving me over. "Come, we celebrate. Tiny humans and friends, now soldiers together." I approached, somewhat hesitantly. They made space for me on the bench, and Mara handed me a drink. "No hard feelings," she said, "about the early assessments. You were working with incomplete information." "I should have known better," I replied, "should have looked deeper." "Maybe," she said, "but now you do know, and you will evaluate future human recruits more fairly. That is what matters." "There will be many more of you," I observed. "Good," Grax rumbled. "Galaxy needs more floor breakers, strong in unexpected ways. Makes everything more interesting." They laughed, and after a moment, I joined them. The sound of different species, different worlds, different biologies, united in friendship and shared accomplishment. This, I realized, was the true strength of the initiative. Not the weapons we wielded or the ships we commanded, but the diversity we represented. Each species bringing unique capabilities. Each perspective offering new solutions. Humans had reminded us of that truth. By refusing to fit our expectations, they had forced us to expand them. As the evening progressed and the celebrations continued, I watched Mara Fletcher, the small human female who had broken our training floor and our assumptions with equal effectiveness. She sat among warriors twice her size, respected not despite her differences, but because of them. Earth had sent us a warrior. We had tried to send her home. Instead, she had taught us what true strength looked like. It wore no armor. It carried no natural weapons. It simply refused to quit, adapted to every challenge, and turned limitation into advantage. The galaxy, I suspected, was about to learn the same lesson, and it would be a memorable education indeed.